This last weekend, women's rights campaigner, also known as anti-trans activist Posey Parker, also known as Kellie J. Keane Minshall, was shouted down and attacked at an event in Albert Park in Auckland. Jonathan Ayling from the Free Speech Union was there, and he joins us by Zoom on the program. Kia ora, thank you for your time today.
Afternoon, Andrew. Great to be here again.
Firstly, you were at the event, just happened to be in town at the time. Certainly, whilst in town, check out the local attractions. But what did you see? What unfolded in Albert Park on Saturday?
Well, look, the Free Speech Union had actually been given the opportunity to have the first interview with Kellie J. Keane Minshall while she was in country. So we were excited to help explore what her thoughts were. And there's obviously confusion around what she does think, because you're saying women's rights activist or anti-trans activist. We're not sure what she thinks or what she says, because none of us have actually been able to hear from her. So we were excited to be able to have this interview with her. I was up there for that. And right up until the event on Saturday at Albert Park, we had absolutely backed the right for those protesting her presence in the country to turn up and to have their voices heard as well, to oppose her presence there. But we did not expect the scenes which ended up unfolding there. I was there standing at the back, and really it was quite troubling. There was incredible intimidation, threats, and then clearly violence towards the end. You could see it unfolding, and that's why I'm not really sure exactly who's to blame, because as the crowd continued to grow, it surrounded the rotunda where she was going to be speaking from. And I turned to the person I was with and I said, how are they going to get her in here? And the next thought, the far more troubling one, was, as things began to heat up, how are they going to get her out of here? And when she claims that she feared for her life, I don't think that is hyperbolic. It's hard with a mob of 2,000, though, to really say who is to blame. And so that's why the Free Speech Union is really saying the police did not do their jobs here, and they need to be held accountable for that.
So no saying these people were the good guys, these were the bad guys. Everybody's got the right to free speech. However, when that free speech involves some strongly held opinions, tempers flare and things get out of control. That's certainly what happened on Saturday. And the police, well, it's not that they weren't anywhere to be seen. They were round the corner standing under a tree, apparently.
Well, that's right. They were right at the back of the protest watching it. And the really chilling comment that I heard was from one of the women that came up to say to the police when Kellie J. Keane Minshall was trapped in the rotunda. They said, look, she can't get out of there. You must do something. And the response of the policeman was, she is in a public space. If she feels unsafe, she needs to leave. And that's actually the opposite of the response that a policeman should offer when someone is in public exercising their legal rights. As law-abiding citizens, or even foreigners, are going about legal activity, it is the role of the police to ensure that the law protects their capacity to do so. They do not have to say, I don't feel unsafe here, I have to leave. How would we feel that response if someone said, I don't feel like I'm allowed to do business here? Well, actually, anti-discrimination law protects them that right. And it's the same. We may not like the speech, but she has a right to make it. And I think that shows that it was fairly predictable, as we've seen in many events prior to this, that there was going to be tempers on both sides. I think in many ways it's comparable to aspects of the Parliament protest, which at the end we also condemned as unacceptable violence. The Free Speech Union has only ever unreservedly condemned violence and threats and intimidation, and that is demonstrably what occurred there. The police inaction at the moment was unacceptable, and their failure to address it since continues to be unacceptable. That's why we've released a public letter. It was signed by almost 15,000 Kiwis in less than 24 hours, and we're calling on the Minister of Police and the Police Commissioner to do their jobs here and actually make sure that people can exercise their speech rights in public, whether they feel safe. Well, they need to be safe to be able to do that.
In terms of whether or not a line was crossed, because there are different reports on this, both in the media and from various commentators. Some have described it as a victory of love over hate. Christopher Luxon has said that it looked pretty peaceful when he watched it on the 6 o'clock news. You were there. Are either of those an accurate description of what went down?
Look, for the vast majority of people that were there protesting Kellie J. Keane, I think they were there with intentions that they believe were well placed, and the vast majority of protesters there did not engage in violence. However, when a crowd of that size comes together, it will be very intimidating, very threatening, and there were demonstrably, without any question, acts of violence that occurred by individuals there. And so, aside from the woman who poured juice on Kelly J. King, she'll be very easily identifiable.
Yep.
Otherwise, it will be difficult for the police after the fact to prosecute cases in this regard. I don't think impossible. There were a lot of cameras and such, so I think that is part of their duty as well. But certainly at the events, they needed to do a better job. There needed to be more preparation there, and that's why the Free Speech Union is laying an independent Police Conduct Authority complaint, and we're also putting a host of OIAs in to see exactly what the instructions were there. What we saw, bit of an activist, Andrew. That wasn't my first protest to be in, and I've always seen the police very aware of what lines people weren't allowed to cross and make sure they held that line. Police were very nonchalant here, and I can't help but think there had been instructions. I hope that doesn't sound conspiratorial, but they were very disengaged. I can't help but think that they had said, unless there is manifest violence, you shouldn't get engaged. And I think we got close to that, and the police still didn't know what to do.
And I suppose the police weren't there observing what unfolded. I mean, yes, let's not jump down a conspiracy theory, but it is a bit of a bad look for police to be involved in standing in the way of angry people who are upset at what they certainly perceived to be the hateful views of this individual who should never have got a visa. Firstly, I mean, is that part of the problem? We knew there was going to be problems. There were people saying she shouldn't be allowed into the country because there'll be problems. They were certainly proved right. I mean, this was not an unpredictable outcome, perhaps.
That sounds a lot like her skirt was too short. She had it coming to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's actually quite an unacceptable line of thinking. I'm not saying that's what you're arguing, but there are commentators that claim that. And I think that is actually very misogynistic, that this woman should have known better than to come and try and raise her voice here on opinions we didn't want to hear from her. The Free Speech Union actually joined the court case opposing the judicial review to exclude her. We were very happy to win that case and see her granted right of entry into the country. But what we saw following that was unacceptable, and it shows a rising intolerance in our country for those that will voice dissenting opinions. And this will not end well. I'm concerned that along with other experts and commentators and politicians, that we exist in a time where violence is more and more possible, more and more likely. And it's because we feel that some ideas simply should not have any voice, any light of day. But violence can never be the way we address that. And for these people, I think for Shanil Lal and Max Tweedy, those that call this a jubilant victory for trans rights, actually, I think the average Kiwi has watched this and said, you've put trans rights back a decade in the way many Kiwis view what this community is about and the way that they'll conduct themselves. And any community that engages in violence deserves the condemnation of the nation. And I think that's what we're seeing here.
Did they cross a line? And from a Free Speech Union point of view, I mean, there's comments that yes, we have free speech, but if we cross certain lines, we perhaps lose the right of free speech because of the actions that we take. Do you think that line was crossed on Saturday?
Absolutely not. The Free Speech Union is not. We're not free speech absolutists. We don't say anyone can say anything, anytime, anywhere. But those lines have to be very bright and they have to be very limited. And there was no incitement to violence from Posey Parker or Kelly J. King Minshall. There was no incitement to violence. There was no breaking the law in terms of her speech. Mm-hmm. And so she needed the rights to express that. And more to the point, I think the Kiwi woman who gathered to hear her also had a right to hear those ideas. And so if you're saying, well, forget about the foreigner, well, let's think about our fellow citizens whose rights were abused here by those in Auckland. It is an unacceptable state of affairs.
From the other perspective, though, for the trans activists, did they cross a line? Was their behaviour unacceptable and criminal in your view?
for individuals that were part of that crowd, there is no doubt. And what is crucial is we see the police take decisive action to show that in instances of speech, you can voice your opinion as much as you want, but you cannot take whatever actions you want. And so the fact that people are boasting about assault and yet having no consequences for that, that will really take away the limitations, the inhibitions that many Kiwis feel when they feel insulted or when they feel offended. Do we want anyone to feel uninhibited in this regard? I don't think that's a good path for our country to pursue.
So what would be the ideal outcome? What should happen next, according to Free Speech Union?
The first of all, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Police need to address the situation. It's unacceptable given the heightened situation. This is a very prominent national conversation. Given the interest in this, it's unacceptable that the Prime Minister hasn't spoken out on it. And the Police Minister and the Minister and the Commissioner of Police need to actually make sure that the inaction of police is addressed. We also need to see those individuals brought to justice, because otherwise we are setting a precedent that actually justifies these actions. And I'm concerned that when the other side does it, we won't see a consistent response.
From a Free Speech Union point of view, you mentioned a few times that there is an opportunity for people to engage with this. You're wanting to bring a complaint through the Police Complaints Authority. If people wanted to find out more, if they wanted to connect with that, what's the best way of doing that, Jonathan?
Our website is fsu.nz, and the first item there is a public letter that we would really encourage your listeners to sign. That's been signed by almost 20,000 Kiwis now to the Minister of Police and the Police Commissioner. That is the key issue that we want here. We will be submitting our IPCA complaint as well, but if others were there on Saturday and believe that the police inaction helped foster that environment, we would encourage them to speak out as well.
We appreciate the work that you do. Thanks for your commentary. Thanks for your time today.